Good afternoon from Austin, Texas. On behalf of the NMC, I'm delighted to welcome you to the NMC Beyond the Horizon Competency-Based Education, or CBE for short. CBE, which allows students to receive credit for and build on real-world skills more efficiently than the conventional semester system, provides a flexible solution for student success. It was the first topic featured in our strategic brief, Scaling Solution to Higher Ed's Biggest Challenges, an NMC Horizon Project Strategic Brief. For this season of the NMC Beyond the Horizon, we're going to dive into all 8 challenges featured in that report. I'm your host today, Alex Freeman, Senior Director of Membership and Special Projects at the NMC. I'm joined by the NMC's Annie Davis, Gordon Jackson, and Brian Yunke. And if you're on Twitter, so are we. Our hashtag for today's event is DLN Chat, and I will add that into the chat as well. Now on to the co-presenters and facilitators for our program today. Shannon McCarty serves as the Associate Vice President for the Center of Innovation and Learning at National University. And Bob Collins is Vice President, Financial Aid at Western Governors University. I'm going to turn it over to Bob to kick off our program. So let me unmute your microphone, Bob, and then, oh, there you go. And I will mute mine.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you sit. My name is Bob Collins. I'm the Vice President of Financial Aid at Western Governors University here in Salt Lake City. I've been a practicing financial aid administrator for a long, long time. Let's just say that. I want to just give a 50,000-foot level at the financial aid aspects of delivering financial aid delivery in a CBE academic delivery model. A little bit about Western Governors University, a private non-for-profit university founded 20 years ago by the 19 Western governors. What were the 19 governors concerned about? The rising cost of education and whether or not the students could know or can do anything after they graduate. So we're really in our infancy at 20 years old, but we do have 80,000 students enrolled and nearly as many graduates. So obviously, competency-based education is while we're the pioneers, I think we are the only ones to offer it at scale, but I think it really is disrupting higher education. So I'm happy to share with you my experience with respect to financial aid. So I wanted to start with a couple of things. You'll see when we go into our breakout room, there will be an Etherpad. It'll help you, maybe we'll take some notes. You'll have access to view that and add value to this conversation. But there's also going to be some resources available to you after this session that I'll be referring to these documents, and you'll have the access to those resources after this session. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is competency-based education, where learning is constant and time is variable, right? So that's the model by which we are delivering this financial aid. And so the CBE is unique in that, well, let me start with the fact that the concept of the Carnegie unit, right? The semester credit hour, that's the currency by which federal aid is awarded and distributed to students across the nation. So there's some 7,000 post-secondary institutions. And so how do we make sure that the Pell Grant is awarded equitably regardless of institution the student is attending? So that's why they use the credit hour as a standard to deliver financial aid. In circa 2008, 2009, there were some regulations that were promulgated under the program integrity. The link that you'll get to this afternoon is a Q&A from the Information for Financial Aid Professionals. It's kind of a plain language approach to understanding the regulations. And in there, they have they redefined, or at least by regulation, they have given a flexible definition of the credit hour. Remember the Carnegie unit, 50 minutes equals an hour and so on, and 2 hours outside of the classroom is worth 1 semester. And that whole formula is really what they've revised. And just a couple of things that I want to call out. You'll have all the reading material. It's a great read. But the flexible definition of a credit hour, it allows the institution to determine the reasonable equivalencies to the semester credit, the Carnegie unit. No seat time requirement is implicit in the definition. And there are other metrics or measures of student progress, such as academic learning outcomes. So this is how we're able to deliver financial aid in a competency-based education. So I think understanding the flexible definition of a credit hour is really fundamental to building your program and making sure you do that. While you do that, you need to consult with your institutional accrediting agency, the one that is recognized by the Secretary of Education that grants you eligibility to participate in the Title IV programs. So you need to consult with your accrediting agencies, because when you're going to change your academic delivery model to that which is competency-based education, it is considered a substantive change. And so you need to make sure that you're having a conversation with your accrediting agency so that you're aware of your new approach in the academic delivery model. The other thing I wanted to touch on, and we'll get into further conversations in the breakout room, the other thing is a Dear Colleague letter. It's sub-regulatory guidance offered by the U.S. Department of Education. This Dear Colleague letter was issued back in December of 2014, I believe. And you'll have a link to this. It's DCL Gen 1423. It's competency-based education, questions and answers. Again, plain language, how to understand this competency. How do you deliver financial aid in a competency-based education delivery model? In that Q&A, I'm going to just focus on several of those things. It is critical and essential that all schools that build CBE programs understand this concept of regular and substantive interaction with the instructor. By law, in the statutory definition of distance education, is this concept of regular and substantive interaction with the instructor. That applies to all programs, quite frankly, because whether you're doing distance education or whether you are in the classroom, regular and substantive interaction with the faculty occurs or should occur to be an eligible program. What's important to note is that when you're operating in that under the regular and substantive interaction with faculty, it's important that you build a program that provides that regular interaction, that the interaction is substantive, and that the faculty is primarily initiating the contact with the student. Very important distinction, because the eligibility for Title IV aid falls under that premise of that regular and substantive interaction. And if it's not regular and it's not substantive and it's primarily initiated by the student, that would be correspondence programs. And correspondence programs are severely limited or extremely limited eligibility for federal aid programs. So that's a really important concept and aspect to understand, that you build your program, design the program so that it has regular and substantive interaction with the faculty. We could talk more about that in the breakout room. The Dear Colleague letter, addresses kind of the four areas. What are the required conditions for regular and substantive interaction? What is academic activity? And the like. So I don't want to, get into too much detail at this juncture, but I'll turn it back over to Alex or introduce Shannon.
Great, thanks, Bob. I would like to now turn it over to Shannon, who's going to give us kind of a bit of a framework that we can look at if we're examining CBE. Before I go there, I do want to remind you that you can comment within the group chat. I shared some poll results out about your role. It looks like we have 4 administrators, no faculty, 3 instructional designers, 2 librarians, 1 staff, and 8 others. If you wouldn't mind adding in the group chat, if you put other in your poll result, what your role is within higher ed. Or if you work outside of higher ed, please let us know. I will start the other poll here in a moment, but I'd like to turn it over to Shannon.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to kind of walk through some slides. All right, and just to give a little background about the framework that we used as we started building this process. I was currently, at the time when I started this, I was at Rio Salado College, and we were part of the Breakthrough Model Incubator program through EDUCAUSE. So in that process, it's kind of an intensive, mindful process, and they provide you a framework, and then they also require key individuals to participate as you start building out your CBE plan. And those individuals are your CIO, your CAO, your CFO. You need to have faculty that are going to be involved, and then mandatory your financial aid director, yay Bob, and then also your registrar. So it's really important to have all of those individuals just involved from the beginning, and as well as we added our instructional design director, because obviously who's going to be building out your CBE program? It's going to be your instructional designers closely working with faculty. So that was where we started on the process. So what we realized is when you put all of those individuals in the room, it is difficult to have the same language. When you have your academics talking about CBE versus your financial aid officer versus your registrar, it starts looking a little fuzzy to everyone. So when we started building our framework, it was really important to us to create a vision. One of the things that they provided through the BMI process was creating your elevator pitch, like really high level. If you had to explain what you're trying to develop, you know, in 75 words or less, what would it look like? So this is what we started with. And you can see we didn't even have a name for what we were going to call our CBE program. We just knew it was going to be cool. But it is going to be a Competency-powered learning environment where the student is at the center, learning happens through authentic project-based assessments, and where the student is supported by learning teams, which consist of content experts and learning coaches. So that was kind of our driving vision as we moved forward and really started kind of pulling the pieces apart and kind of started disaggregating our program. So after that, because again, it was really important that we all had the same vision. We needed to make sure our financial aid director and our registrar were really understanding what we needed. So as we developed the program, all of those pieces could be tracked back to the credit hour, to transcripts, to even, you know, how we submitted our HLC substantive change form. So then we also created a video, and it's really short. It's just our little explainer video. I'll pull it up here. And I'm going to start playing and be quiet because I think my volume, hopefully you guys can hear it.
Are you hardworking and motivated and wish to finally get your Associate of Arts degree? Would you like to avoid a set of static, strict courses that ignore your prior knowledge and experience and treat it as irrelevant while forcing you to learn about things you already know? That's where RIO's CBE program comes in. We offer you a competency-powered learning environment with you at the center. Instead of taking traditional courses, you'll work on and complete authentic real-world projects, learning during the process and proving not only what you know, but what you can do with what you know. How does it work? After you enroll in our affordable program, you'll work on projects that combine content from multiple disciplines. You'll use your prior knowledge and experience. And when it comes to something that you don't know yet, or when you're uncertain how to proceed, our expert faculty and learning coaches will assist you. What that means for you is that you'll discover at your own pace with assistance whenever you need it, and you'll focus only on the information you don't already know. And the result? You'll earn your AA degree, and you'll be better prepared for real-life experiences at work and in your community. Simply enroll in RIO's CBE program today to earn your quality Associate of Arts degree in less than 2 years for about $5,000 online.
All right, so let me go back to this. And I do want to say that's somewhat false advertising because that was really for our internal visioning process. It's not in existence, so if you Google My Degree, My Way, it does not exist currently. They're still working on it. But this is really what helped us create our vision and keep working towards that. Then from there, we really had to start getting the details in place. We knew that we wanted to take the Associates of Arts degree and completely disaggregate it. So it's not like students would enter a course and excel in a course. They would accelerate through the entire program. So we thought of it kind of like a bingo card. So as you were learning certain competencies, you're earning those pieces on your bingo card and you're progressing through the degree. And it would be a very integrated process. So projects could be involve chemistry and math and writing and communications. And so you would be earning those types of credits and competencies throughout the entire program. So that way, really, if you already had prior information, you could accelerate very quickly. If there were areas you need to slow down on, you could slow down and you would get that like just-in-time learning. So this is really what this shows is the projects. And we knew that our projects would have to align back to how we mapped our competencies. We wanted them all to really be project-based, problem-solving, something that they would do in the real world. So then again, this is really how we knew that we would map. And I think this mapping process and showing the tasks, that was really beneficial for instructional designers and even our financial aid specialists. She's like, okay, I can start to see how students are staying on progress, how we can assess progress, how we can afford or avoid SAP students being not making progress in their financial aid process. And then, as Bob mentioned too, that substantive interaction with faculty is really having those pre-assessments, providing those important learning opportunities, and then those little mini projects. So these are the opportunities for constant interaction with faculty. We started talking about what are the different faculty roles. We knew that we would have a SME that was really there to create that content. Someone that we call them a navigator. They were really helping students through the process, keeping them on track, nudging them. An assessor, that would be the person that's really providing that feedback on assignments, determining if students haven't mastered or they're still not quite yet there. And then we knew that these were the other key components. Financial aid was consideration, technology. You need to have either a platform or an LMS that can manage this. Human capital, really you're gonna have multiple faculty roles, financial aid individuals, your registrar, transcripting. I mean, there's so many key pieces. And then startup funds. And I think for us or for Rio at least, that was kind of the challenge and partly where we kind of got stuck was the startup funds because it's not an inexpensive process. And then from there, we really started developing our charter and really fleshing out, these are the goals, these are the objectives within the goals, and keeping it pretty much to those 4 areas. So the pathways, financial aid, what are the student services, processes, and then finally technology. And I think those are my 8 minutes, and we can discuss more as we do our breakout sessions.
All right, looks like everyone is coming back. Great. I'm going to unmute our 3 session leaders, our 3 facilitators. The next 9 minutes or so, let's go ahead and I'll let each of the facilitators, I'll start with Shannon. Did you have a person reporting out kind of what you all talked about in your room?
Sure. And it was interesting because I think that the individuals in my room were actually 2 from the same school. So they asked a lot of great questions really focused on the program that they are working to develop in cybersecurity. Some of those questions, and I think that's always a great question to start with, is how do you get faculty involved? How do you get them on board? So we really just talked about finding faculty that are really passionate about it, getting them excited about those real world opportunities that competency-based ed would lean towards, perhaps involving some advisory board members. So as they build projects, it's very skill set based and something that those students then could transfer to the real world very quickly. So that was one of the big things, just making sure that they bring in their financial aid advisor or director as quickly as possible. So those are kind of the big topics that we addressed.
Okay, great. How about you, Bob? What topics did you address in your section? Or do you have a reporter out?
Yeah, I do have a reporter out. It was like taking a drink out of a fire hydrant, right? So we did have some good conversation. In my room was a PhD candidate that's working on the different academic delivery models, digital badges. So it was pleasant to meet her. And then Matt from Virginia is starting up a program at his institution. Really focusing on what do you got to do to get financial aid eligibility, and what does your faculty model look like? And we did talk a little bit about digital badges. So if you want to open up the mic for Matt.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. And as Bob said, my name is Matt Dunleavy from Radford University, and I have several of my colleagues on here. So it's thank you so much for making this resource available. As Bob mentioned, we've covered 3 main areas. I was most interested in the process for the financial aid, literally the nuts and bolts of the process. And so And Bob, please jump in if I say anything incorrect. But according to Bob, the first step is to reach out to your regional accreditors. In our case, that's SAC-COC, and notify them. I was under the impression that in order to do CBE, you had to be part of the experimental sites at the federal level through the U.S. Department of Education. But according to Bob, that is not necessary, but it is a path. So there's two paths there available. If you want to do the direct assessment and be a federal experimental site, you can do that. But if you wanted to go with another approach that wasn't necessarily married to direct assessment, you don't necessarily need the U.S. Department of Education's approval to receive Title IV funding. And so I think that's great news for us because that provides us with some more flexibility. The second area we were interested in was, or I posed, was what is the actual ratio among students, faculty, coaches, and assessors? And from Bob's experience, they have a disaggregated faculty model where they have three different roles for the faculty. The first of which is the student mentor or program mentor, which are all master's levels professionals who are usually graduates of the program. So they're very experienced with the program and they help with overall program questions. They then have a course mentor, which are SMEs or subject matter experts. These are PhDs or above. And so they actually help with student learning objectives at the course level. And then they have a third faculty role, which is evaluation and assessment. These are masters and beyond. And one of the key points that Bob stressed was there's a firewall, if you will, between the student mentors, course mentors, and the assessors so that we don't actually have any kind of incentive to teach to the test. So that is the summary of that. And then Nicole was from Penn State, was interested in badges and the intersection between badges or micro-credentialing or stackable credentials with financial aid. And Bob's point was, while there's a huge labor demand for micro degrees and badges and credentialing in general, because there's a lot of jobs without enough talent to fill them, they do not qualify for financial aid. So that's my report out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Alex, if I can add to that, appreciate that that report out, Matt. Let me just go a little bit more into the ratios. You know, again, the student mentor is going to have a student all the way through the beginning to the end of the program. The ratio is for our faculty is less than 100. You know, any more than 100 students for one student mentor, that gets to be a little, it's not serving our students well. Course mentors, on the other hand, the subject matter experts who are going to focus on a topic, they will have either a course community or they'll have a course webinar, and they will have a webinar next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Come join this, and we're going to talk about this topic. And so you could have hundreds, maybe thousands of students in a course webinar. It's really engaging, and it's initiated by the faculty, but students are welcome to join. So the course mentors are going to have a much bigger classroom, a bigger audience, if you will. So that helps answer the ratios thing. The one thing I do want to make clear, though, that Matt had spoke to is if you're going to participate in the experiments, you get some waivers. There's some unique approaches that you want to do if you want to have a hybrid version. But you do have to get approval from your accrediting agency as a substantive change. Once you get your blessing from the accrediting agency, you can begin to implement and deliver financial aid in that model. I don't want to get into the weeds about term, non-standard term, but I'm available to get into that level of detail as necessary and how do you deliver financial aid in that model. To Nicole's point about the stackable credentials and the digital badges, there is an experiment out there, and Alex or Annie, I'll be sure to get you the link to the Experimental Sites Initiative. You can kind of see what the department is doing, exploring these quality assurance entities or these non-higher education institutions, content providers. There is an experiment out there that was just beginning to look at providing federal financial aid for these non-institutions of higher learning. So remind me, I owe you a link.
Thanks, Bob. Now on to Annie. What did your group talk about?
Hi guys. So we had a representative, Becky from WGU. We had a representative from the library sector, and we had a room full of people from CTU who are focused right now on adaptive learning and how they can kind of use that, integrate that into CBE. So our focus was, we started off by defining, what makes CBE different from higher education. We really focus on the flexibility it gives students. Learning is constant, but the time is what varies. So students can have jobs, they can, have family members that they are responsible for. And so the flexibility is a big portion of it. We also talked about how CBE doesn't only have to be online. Becky had touched on how they were, while WGU is a fully online program, they do have partners that, you either use face-to-face or hybrid methods. So don't worry if you don't have online learning. CBE can be used within, other methods as well. We then talked about the professor and faculty role and how it differs from that of a traditional role, more of a guide at the side, I think is what Becky had said, and I really liked that. And how those institutions who do use CBE programs are training their professors to work within that. And then lastly, we talked about just the subscription model that WGE uses, how students can complete as many competencies within a 6-month time range, and how they usually, instead of signing up in 5 courses at once, they complete a competency one by one before moving on. So it was great. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Annie. Okay, so sadly, our time is running short, so I need to start closing out the program. I want to make sure that we will gather the resources and share them back out to you. So if you weren't in a room and you want to hear more about what was happening in, say, Annie's room or Bob's room, we will get you those materials. We'll get you the slide deck and any other notes that we have from this session. So to wrap up today's program, I want to thank Shannon and Bob for joining us on behalf of the NMC, for taking time to lead today's discussion on CBE. Participants, if you want more information about anything you saw or heard today, let us know by contacting me directly at alex@nmc.org. To learn more about future NMC online programs and get involved in our community, you can visit our website at nmc.org, like us on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter. I want you to save the dates. We have 3 upcoming programs kind of in this model. And we'll provide some tweaks to make it go smoothly. So thanks for experimenting with us today. But those dates are March 29th, Integrating Student Data Across Platforms. April 20th is Scaling Evidence-Based Methods Across Disciplines. And on May 17th, Facilitating Discovery of Learning Technologies. We'll take a quick break in the summer for our NMC Summer Conference. If you haven't heard about that, please go to our website for more information on that. And then we will have a slate of our other 4 challenges that we'll return to in the fall. With that, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I am going to dismiss you and have a good day. And hopefully we'll see you at our next program at the end of the month.